Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to all our respected viewers, and welcome on Youth Matters with me, your host Sakina Habib. Now, I'm sure that most of us are spending a lot of time on social media. And, when we even want to access something very quickly, it's quite easier to access it through whatever social media shows us. And that could be through the social media apps. For example, you've got Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram. Snapchat, and all these sorts of apps. So it's just to get those quick news highlights. But then, are we really sure that the source that where we're getting the information from is authentic or not? Whether the information is complete or incomplete, whether it's edited and all of that. As you know, that we've been seeing a lot of the ongoing situation in Palestine and Gaza as well. In the last couple of months, every day we're seeing a lot of stuff, and it just sometimes even becomes very difficult for one to decipher the information. Like when for example, Israel strikes and does the corruption and all of that part. So sometimes there are a lot of these bugging questions in our minds, like what's the actual reality, what's not. Young people may be digital natives, but many of them aren't equipped to deal with the increasing onslaught of disinformation and deep fakes appearing in their social media feeds. Now, a growing number of states think they have an antidote, which is the media literacy education. Now, the goal of media literacy, sometimes called digital citizenship or information literacy, is to help students think critically about the news that is presented to them. Media literate students also should be able to separate fact from fiction in political messaging, advertisements, television shows, and social media posts. Perhaps most importantly, supporters say that young people should be able to infer why someone posted an Instagram reel or a TikTok video, and to weigh the potential consequences of spreading it around. As we all know, that as technology changes, society also has to change, and a big part of that is education changing. So let us dissect into today's topic and really try to understand that, is social media really taking over this media literacy or not? I would like to welcome on board my very dear beloved guest, Sister Salwa Habib. Hello, assalamu alaikum, Salwa, how are you?
Walaikum assalam, Sister Sakina. I'm well. I hope you're keeping well, inshallah. Can you
Yes,
hear
I
me all
am.
right?
It is Yes, yes, I can. It is an
Okay.
indeed pleasure to have you with me, Salwa, once again on board. First of all, Salwa, I just want to say congratulations to you. You are soon graduating in June, and I'm so excited for you. You're
Inshallah.
finally, completed. Yeah, you're finally all the way there. Much love. 4 years. You've completed your media and communication degree, right? Yeah. That's
Yes.
brilliant. That's
Yes.
amazing.
Inshallah. Thank you so
I
much for
wish you
your
all the
well
very best.
wishes. Assalamu alaikum to all of our viewers. I hope everyone's keeping well, inshallah.
Inshallah, Salwa. I wish you all the very best. For those who don't know, like Salwa is my sister, and she's been volunteering in my shows from the last 3 years since we started Youth Matters, 3.5 now. And I really want to thank her because from her busy assignments and from her busy projects and all of that, she's always made out time for me, and she's never said a no. So I really thank you, and I love to talk about these topics with you because we're on the same page, right? Like we've got the same passion and the same ideas and everything. So I really love having you with us now. Salwa, social media is everywhere out there, right? Like we can't really keep away from it. It's really difficult because we've got our phones, we've got the Instagram, we've got TikTok and all of that. Like the other day I was reading something really interesting, and it really like blew my mind. I was watching this, you can say news, okay, and someone commented, okay, just like that, that the same people who were like dancing on TikTok, and making these content creators. So some of them, these are the same ones who actually supported the voice of Palestine, like, in like, when it comes to the protests and all of that, like those Caucasians and those people from different backgrounds. So it was like, okay, this doesn't really make sense, but probably it does in a way, because it's like, they got woken up that we have to fight for against injustice, right? We have to fight for what is right. Even though, like, they are content creators and they do all that entertaining stuff and all those crazy stuff, but you see, even they've got a conscience. Like, when it came to what's right and wrong, they said no, we have to support Palestine. And all these TikTok content creators, they actually went out there in the protests and everything. They took part to support the voice of Palestine. So, Salwa, when it comes to social media, right? Do you think that is social media really taking over media literacy? Because, for someone like you, like, you're a proper media student, you do your researching of the facts. You have to check where the source is coming from. You have to do the citation and everything, right? So when I gave you this example right now, okay, if you just think about it, what do you think? How does is social media really taking over media literacy?
I believe that social media definitely is taking over media literacy, but the example that you gave just now is a positive representation of social media taking over media literacy. Because right now we're seeing on social media, we're seeing a wave of protest on social media. Like there's protests happening outside, but the protests that are happening on social media are massive, and because of that, people are waking up. The reason why you're seeing all of these influencers and all these TikTokers, all these people finally waking up to something that's been happening since the past 75 years, but the world is only now waking up to it, especially the youth, the younger generation. They are especially becoming even more aware. Now we have students protesting in universities in the US, and this all of this is the result of everything that came about on social media. All the journalists who were on the ground in Palestine, showing every single thing that they were going through each and every day on social media. So what is media literacy? Media literacy is basically when you've fact checked all of your sources, and when you know how to decipher whether when you as a viewer know how to decipher whether something is authentic or not. Now, what was happening during this ongoing genocide was that there was these journalists who were showing you in real time what is actually happening on the ground. It doesn't get any more authentic than that, you know? So
True. Very
people
true.
were watching that for months, and now people have finally woken up. There's a lot of people. Yes, I agree that there's no action happening on the upper level, no action happening amongst major veto power governments, but there is a lot of action happening amongst amongst normal people, amongst citizens of the world. People are waking up. If it was in the hands of people, there are millions actually are not even aware about what was happening in Palestine, but because of social media, they are now aware of what was happening, and now they're showing up to the streets because social media told them what was happening. And the journalists who are spending each and every day of their lives in Palestine showing people what is happening on social media, which is why now they know, which is why now they're on the roads, which is why the numbers are increasing, which is why the pressure is increasing to end this, on a global level, which is amazing.
It is absolutely, Salwa. And the other day, there was a sister who mentioned, I think it was Sister Sahar Jaber. She posted on Instagram this really amazing, beautiful message where she commended all these students, in the USA and in Western countries, basically, because we know that to protest for such a thing, especially in the West, is very difficult. You've got all the superpowers there, and to have that audacity and the courage to actually come out and stand up for the right. I think now we feel like, yes, something right is happening finally. Like, we're on
Yes,
the right path. We're
absolutely.
finally right. Absolutely. Even the youngsters right now, like today's generation, as much as one would like to say, oh, these people are into social media and, they're absent minded and, they've got no way, no path. But I rather feel that today's generation have this sensation in their hearts, and they're more
Absolutely.
awake to they're more alerted to what's happening around the
Absolutely.
world. They have those emotions. Their conscious is actually awake,
Yeah.
so
Yes. Absolutely.
yeah.
Agreed.
And Selva, what do you think, what are some key social media trends that users should be aware of in order to spread the messages as much as possible? Like someone like you, what do you usually use regularly? What would you say is the most efficient one?
So that's the thing, right? With social media, you have to be very careful. While it is an amazing platform, which has brought about change, but that same platform um, also has false information. And a lot of times a lot of people uh, a lot of people don't really understand how to navigate through that false information, how to decipher that false information. So uh so yeah, I would say, as long as you're seeing on social media content being posted by an authentic journalist, then you should 100% trust it, of course. But if
Hmm.
you see content from a page, for example, a page is reposting something. So what I would do is,
Yeah.
what my way of figuring it out is, I would first see that page, where did that page get it from? And then if that page got it from
Right.
another page, I would go to that other page and see, okay, where did they get it from? And then if it goes back to the key journalist who I know is authentic,
Yeah.
then I would know, okay, this page is posting accurate information. Do you get, like, it's a
Right.
whole process. But that's the thing. Only somebody who knows about media literacy is someone who would take this much trouble. Other people would just see a WhatsApp forward, or see a post on an Instagram page, without verifying if it truly is a picture or a video from 2024 and not 2017. Without verifying any of that, they would just forward it ahead. But
Right.
that's not the way. The key to getting accurate information on social media, because social media has accurate information and a lot of false information as well. The key to getting accurate
Absolutely.
information is that when you have an information source in front of you, and that source is not the prime source, it's not the main source, you need to go back and try to find the prime source. If it's too hard to find the prime source on Instagram, there's always Google as well. You can just Google, maybe like the news channels, whatever news channels that you trust provide authentic
Yeah, and
information.
go,
Any
like,
news
go
channel that you
directly
trust.
on those sources. Like, go directly
Exactly.
on the sites of those news channels, like subscribe and
Exactly.
read. Yeah, read it directly from there.
Exactly. So fact checking is extremely important, and that is, I think, that is a huge problem that a lot of people don't recognize. And then also, the algorithm, also the way that the algorithm is structured. A lot of times, a lot of things won't really show up on your algorithm, and that's because the algorithm is also very powerful on its own, and there's people controlling that algorithm, which is why a lot of Palestinian content, for example, is not getting a lot of voice. But because of the fact that people kept reposting, resharing, and now we can see that Palestinian content is still showing up. Like, not as much, but it is showing up. Before, it wouldn't show up at all. Before, it wouldn't show up at all.
Yeah.
And then Instagram itself is also backed up by veto powers. So Instagram also has a way of of silencing these voices. A lot of accounts have been shut down. A lot of accounts protesting for Palestine have actively actually been shut down, and people are not being able to post content, post material. So, which is why people who are looking for authentic content from Palestine on the ground have to be very careful, because there's also a lot of people spreading fake news. There's a lot of people spreading fake news in the sense that they're not really showing you exactly what is happening, or they're trying to divert your attention by giving you fake news and diverting your attention from what is actually happening in real time. So people focus more on the
Right.
fake news, and then the other side gets the chance to say, oh, like these people are pulling up something from God knows when, which is not happening right now. Like,
And
so they can get a chance to say, oh, they're lying. They've been lying this whole
yeah,
time. None of this is true, because you pick one video, you see a video, and you don't fact check if it's from 2024 or it's from 2000, and then you say, oh my God, this is happening now, but that's from 2000. What happens? The other side gets the chance to say, oh my God, you're lying. This is not from
right.
2024. This is from 2000. Exactly. Even it doesn't make
Right.
it right. Doesn't make it right. But still, we don't want to give anybody a chance, right? We don't want to give anybody a
Exactly.
chance to point fingers at us, right?
Absolutely. We don't want to give them the benefit of doubt. And that's why
Yeah.
media literacy comes into picture. So that's why one
Exactly.
has to have media literacy, at least in the background, to know how to verify your information, to make sure that, the source is accurate. Because see, like, generally speaking, a normal average person wouldn't know how to do the media literacy
Yeah.
check, because obviously they've
Exactly.
been taught
Exactly.
about it. Yeah, so they're just gonna follow the normal social media, whatever is coming up on their feed, and people are just gonna go about it. So that is why I feel like both of them are very important. Like, both of them are actually interconnected, I feel. So, social media, of course, is very powerful on its own, but at the same time, to have that traditional media literacy background adds a plus point,
Yeah.
especially if you, yeah, especially when it comes to like
Yeah.
politics,
Absolutely.
I feel.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not just, but even every other thing as well. Like a person needs to be media literate in order to be on social media. Because if you're not media literate on social media, a person is definitely going to be taken advantage of in many ways that they wouldn't even know about. It's very, very important to be media literate, to know what is the content that I'm posting, where is my content going, what are the privacy concerns, all of these things. It's really important. I think that media literacy is something, especially in today's era, I think it is something that should be an active part of curriculum for children from a very younger age, because social media now, it is a digital era. And the same way that we learned reading, kids nowadays, they need to be taught media literacy from a very younger age, so that they can also know, and also be aware of this. It's very important for media literacy to be included from primary, I think, from primary curriculum now in this digital era, so that when they're older, or even when they're young, actually, because there are so many people attacking children online, so children
Yeah,
need to know
absolutely.
as well. Children need to know that,
Yeah.
okay, this is not okay. I need to stay away from this. This is not okay. This is okay. This is not okay. So yeah.
Absolutely. I love this idea actually. I hope they do so. There are a lot of changes that are taking place recently. Like the other day, I was watching um, this advertisement on TikTok. So there's this person who's founded a new university. It's called, I think, Tetter. What they're doing is that instead of having the classroom sort of method, where you have to have a classroom and there's a professor, and he gives out lectures to the students. He's providing the opportunity for these students to travel to 7 countries around the world, and in 4 months, like, you become this local student in one of the best universities, and you make a business. Like, you become a like, you start your own business, you launch your business. So each country of course has its own characteristic. Let's say for example, if you go to Milan in Italy, right, so they're going to be given this classes on how to manage YouTube, okay, and then if you go to, for example, Nigeria, they're going to teach you how to handle an NGO. If you go to Singapore, they're going to teach you how to do social media and all the tech stuff. So like when you go to each country, you're like getting, these the best things that you can get from out of that country basically, and use it to build your business. By the end of your 3 or 4 year degree, you've actually earned money, you've actually
So
like
cool.
yeah, that's so cool. Imagine, like, it's not like a classroom study, but it's like now you're going out there practically, and like you're learning how to interact with business people, make deals, and at the end of the day, at the end of the your everything, like your year and everything, it's like you're not just coming out without learning anything, but you're coming out learning how to deal with people, how to make money in today's
So good.
world. And yeah, that's so good. And also, it's like it's not based on grades. Like you're not going to be judged whether you get an A, B, or C. It's like you're going to be judged on how much revenue you made, how much profit you made, how much cost you made. That's what you're going to be judged. So you are right. There is a shift now coming in our learning system, and it should, in fact,
Yeah,
because
should
the
be.
world is changing now, and we need to move from the traditional
Yeah,
aspects, and come
indeed.
into the modern sort of life.
Yeah,
As Imam Ali
absolutely.
alayhi salam even says, you
Yeah,
have to move with
absolutely.
your time, with your generation. So this is what's
Absolutely.
going to happen right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you
Yeah.
need to be prepared for what's to come. Salwa, if I were to ask you, what are some strategies for identifying biases, misinformation, and fake news on social media? How would you do that? And if you have, some time, if you can give one example, even it's okay, where we've seen like fake news or some misinformation that was spread, and people really went for it.
So I think the first the first part of it is to understand what media literacy is, right? Like what and to be very critical of social media, that of to be skeptical about social media, not to just accept anything and everything that comes your way on social media. Um, because as I said, while social media is a platform where there is a vast amount of information. There is everything on social media. It is literally like an ocean. You can keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and you're going to get so much information. All that information is so overwhelming, which is why you cannot know, but you have to categorize in all of that overwhelming information, especially if you're someone who truly cares about getting to the crux of things and finding out the truth of matters, which I think every human being should have in them. I think every human being should should strive to know what is true and what is not. So you need to categorize all the information that you're getting, categorize it into two parts. Categorize, okay, this is the information that's coming from a prime source. If it's coming from a prime source, then you're well and sorted. But the information that's not coming from a prime source, you need to really sit down and analyze it and try to trace it back to the prime source. Maybe if you can trace it back to your prime source, maybe ask people around you that, hey, have you heard about this? Have you heard about this? And see what they say, because a lot of times word of mouth, especially if it's coming from somebody who has knowledge about this, can actually be really helpful. If somebody has knowledge about politics, which is uh, accurate knowledge about politics, they can give you accurate information. Like for example, if you go to any doctor about any issue, they would know and you would trust that they're giving you accurate information because it is their field of expertise. So you find
Right.
somebody who is in that field of expertise in your circle who can give you the correct answer. Or if they don't have an answer, they will definitely find out for you because that is their field of expertise. So find people
Right.
in that field of expertise, number one. Number two, try to trace back to the prime source somehow, either through somebody in the field of expertise or through by yourself, like research. Everything is on the internet, try to
Yeah.
find which news source it came from. I think one example of like fake news that was coming up was like recently, like if we're talking about politics, I think it's in the context of how there was how Israeli media was claiming about the 14 babies in the beginning. Was it 40
Yeah,
or
yeah,
40? I don't even remember the
yeah,
number. I
yeah.
don't
It
even
was
remember the number.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't even want to
four
remember the
zero.
number. 40, I think it was 40. Yeah, and that was like everybody, like all of Western media was falling for that. And not just that, there was a lot of other other fake news that was also coming from Israeli media, which was actually, it was so funny. It was extremely funny,
I
the
know
fact
it
that
even
people
came on
couldn't
Piers
even
Morgan
see.
show. It was so funny. And I think it
Yeah,
was who Bassem
yeah,
Yusuf and Piers Morgan. They were having this argument. It was really cool though. It was
yeah.
like a
There was also
debate going
something
on.
about a
Like,
calendar. There was also something about a calendar, and that was the funniest
yeah,
thing I
yeah,
have ever
the Arabic
seen in my
calendar.
whole life. Because that's the thing, right? Like, it
I
was
know,
so
I know.
funny. Even now, like thinking about it is making me laugh because it was so funny. It was like and a lot, so many people were falling for it. You know, there were so many, like all the Western media, like all these
Yeah,
big media channels that you would think would know media literacy, were failing to recognize that these are the days of the week in Arabic. Like, you're telling me that such big media institutions, you don't have a single Arab on your team to verify and tell you that, hey, this is not, this is not it. You know, that's what I'm saying. Like, people need to be this. I think when I think of fake news right now, these things they were such a joke. I think these things were the
I know.
biggest, like the biggest. But then even this, I would say that as much as people keep saying this generation doesn't know anything, I would say it was actually a lot of people in this generation who were like, hey, this is fake. Like, hey, this is fake. Like, the big news channels were claiming that this is true, but youth on the internet had enough media literacy, even more than media channels, to say, hey, you know what? This is fake. Like, this is not
That's
true.
right.
Like, yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. So,
Even right now, when Iran, retaliated, or you can say striked very recently, on the 14th of
yeah,
April, and again there was a lot of chaos coming from the other
there
side of the
was
media that yeah, they've done this like out of
a huge
revenge, and I don't
thing.
know what.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was like a huge thing. And Iran clarified that we didn't like fire at your hospitals and schools the way you did. It was on it was exactly on your military bases. So that makes sense. So yeah, sometimes media literacy is very important. Okay,
it's true.
Salwa, last question, and inshallah we are going to wrap up today's program. So last question is, Salwa, you know uh how do social media platforms construct and present information, and how does that influence the meaning that users derive from it? Maybe if you can give some
Yeah, so
examples
that's
or something.
if I get your question, I think that's what I was saying before, that that social media ultimately is controlled by powers who are veto powers, and there's an algorithm which is extremely powerful, and an algorithm which is going to curate things which is not necessarily accurate either. They're going to try to curate things to fit their narrative, because
Yeah,
their narrative is the I would say the hegemonizing narrative. It's like a hegemony. A hegemony is like basically their, I don't know how to explain the word hegemony, but they're basically they're taking over like the minority view, which is the correct
yeah,
view, right? And because their view
right.
is the majority view, that is the view that's being curated on the algorithm. That is the view that is showing up on the algorithm. And you basically have to play with the algorithm there, because the
Oh
algorithm is
yeah,
not going to show you what you want to see. You have to play with the algorithm. You have to find the content. You have to constantly find the content, constantly find the content, constantly save the content, share the content, comment on the content, engage with the content, constantly find the content, engage with the content, and then you will have successfully fooled the algorithm, basically. And then the
Yeah.
algorithm will show you, will curate you and show you exactly that. That's what will appear on your explore page. And bravo, you've done the job. But first, you have to spend a lot of time actually trying to fool the algorithm, because it will not show you. It will show you the narrative which is being played out, which is the main, which is basically the main force. That's what's going to be shown to you. And unfortunately, a lot of people who are not media literate, they fall for that trap. And the next thing you know, people have so much misinformation, disinformation, fake news, and they don't even know about it. Like, they're not even aware until they go and actually talk to a person face to face. And they're like, there's a lot of people, I've come across a lot of people who actually just have a lack of awareness. Like, they're just not aware about what is happening in Palestine. And can we really blame them? No, because on their social media, what they're seeing is, they're seeing information from Zionist media. That the information that they're watching on television is Zionist media. On their social media also, they're seeing a Zionist information. So it's not their fault. We can't blame them. There are a lot of people, actually, even in the protests, a lot of people show up who are like, we don't know what, like, can you tell us what's happening? And then when they find out, they're like, oh, okay, like, this is actually, yeah, this happens. There's a lot of people who have no idea what's going on, because, or who are on the wrong side of history, because
Yeah.
they haven't been told, because their algorithm is not telling them. Their algorithm is curated to the hegemonic narrative, and it's not telling them what's actually happening. So when they actually go out and talk to people is when they find out and they change sides. That happens. It
Very true.
happens. It's not
You know
impossible.
what?
It happens.
Just
Sorry.
remembered. I just remembered something. Sorry, it just struck me right now. I remember when this war was like at its peak. I think it was in the month of March. And do you remember that silly Anand Ambani's wedding thing? It was like all over the social media. So
Yeah.
that was really surprising. Like, there's a literal war going on out there in the world, and look at these people. Like, they have no care. In the world, they're like busy spending on their this huge wedding, inviting celebrities from Bollywood, Hollywood, I don't know whatsoever. They've got this huge cake. Like, they're spending so much money on their on calling the Hollywood singers, the famous ones, and on spending on all these people, lavish parties. But like, no one was there thinking about Palestine at that time. And I remember the feeds were literally filled with like these viral posts everywhere. Like, even if you wanted to get rid of
That's the
them, you
thing.
couldn't, because that's
Yeah,
what
that's the
algorithm was doing.
exactly. That's the thing, because social media, actually, especially Instagram, I've noticed this thing actually, that it likes to keep you involved and engaged with vain content, so that there's no importance on the actual important content. I like, this is actually the algorithm. It tries to show you only vain content. Like, I've noticed this personally as well, that whenever I post a political story, or especially something about Palestine, my views drastically decrease. But the minute I post
Yeah.
about anything else, I get so many views, because the algorithm, the way the algorithm is actually, it wants to keep people into vain things. It wants to keep people into vain things, away from the important things. All that's why these weddings and all of these affairs and all of these things are coming up on our feeds, because the algorithm wants you to keep looking at the things which really don't matter, and it wants to drown away the important content, drown away, make you so tired scrolling down all the vain content, that when the last content is an important content, you're so tired you've switched off your phone. You're like, that's it, I can't, I've
Right.
had enough of the day. They try to drain your
Right.
energy with vain content, even with stories. Like, all the random stories that I post get so many views, but the political important content that I post gets such low
It
views,
gets
which
way
is, even
less
in that
viewers.
case, you have to play with the algorithm in that case as well. From my experience, is that you post a random story, and then you post something about Palestine, and then you post a random story again, and that's how you have to fool the algorithm. Basically, you actually have to fool the algorithm. That's
Yeah.
how your Palestine story will get views, because people are
Views.
gonna because the algorithm is going to show your random story up on people's feeds. They will click on it, and
Yeah.
then the second one is a Palestinian story, they'll see that too. But if you post Palestinian content only without posting any random content, you will have zero views. Zero views.
All right. Thank you so much, Salwa. I think that was a fantastic discussion for today. I wish we could have carried on more, but I would have to wrap up the program today because of the time limit. Once again, I thank you so much for joining me on today's program. It was amazing having you as usual. And I just love the way, you're so like passionate and, very, mashallah, you've got all the,
Thank you.
you've always been like that. So I love it
Thank
actually.
you.
Thank you, Salwa.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, viewers, for tuning on today's program. And I hope that all of you enjoyed today's conversation with my sister Salwa, and we really did highlight and touch on, very current topics. I mean, very current situations, very current highlights that are happening as of late, especially related to social media and if it's taking over media literacy. And at the end, we're saying that both of them are basically interconnected, and it's very important for us to make sure what we're posting and what could the consequences be if we are not making sure whether this information or the source is accurate, credible, or not. So please make sure that whatever you post it in a very thoughtful way. And of course, go on ahead. I mean, do your random postings as well. Like, I do this all the time. It doesn't mean like people should start judging you for that. Come on. I mean, it's normal. Just try to even post normal stuff. But when it comes to especially like political messages and all of that, so we have to be a bit more cautious on that side. Thank you very much for tuning on today's program, and I hope that all of you benefited from today's conversation with my sister Salwa. We tried to highlight the current latest, highlights and the current things that are happening as of late when it comes to media. So let's be very cautious when we're promoting certain messages. For example, when it comes to political messages and all of that, let's try to be a bit more cautious. And at the end of the day, we've concluded that social media and media literacy are actually interconnected. It's just the way how you use it. And with that, I would like to sign off. This is your host, Sakina Habib. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.